The living room felt suffocating as I stared at my mother, Donna, and my younger sister, Grace. Grace had just announced that she and her husband, Jack, needed a place to stay after hitting a rough patch. My mother's face lit up like a child on Christmas morning. "Of course you two can stay here," Donna exclaimed, wrapping Grace in a tight embrace. "We'll make room for you, no problem." My heart sank. This was our home, the modest 2-bedroom house I had worked tirelessly to maintain. Yet, as usual, my needs were an afterthought. "Mom, can I talk to you for a minute?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Donna waved me off dismissively. "Not now, Beth. We need to get the guest room ready for Grace and Jack." Grace shot me a smug grin, reveling in her favored status. I clenched my fists, anger bubbling within me. "This isn't just your decision," I said, raising my voice. "I live here too, and I'm not okay with them moving in without any discussion." Donna's expression hardened as she turned to face me. "Watch your tone, young lady. Grace is family, and family comes first." "But what about me?" I demanded, my voice cracking with emotion. "I've sacrificed so much to keep this household running, and you treat me like a burden." Donna's eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer, her finger pointing accusingly at me. "If you can't accept your sister's situation, then maybe you should find somewhere else to live." The words hit me like a slap across the face. Grace giggled behind her hand, clearly enjoying the drama she had instigated. "You know what, Mom?" I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "Maybe I will." Without another word, I stormed out of the living room, hot tears streaming down my cheeks. I had finally reached my breaking point. I paced back and forth in my bedroom, hot tears of anger and hurt stinging my eyes. How could Mom be so heartless? After everything I'd done to keep our household afloat, she was kicking me out to make room for Grace and her deadbeat husband. A knock at the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Beth?" It was Mom's voice, laced with irritation. "We need to talk about this." I flung open the door, glaring at her. "Talk about what? About how you're replacing me with your favorite daughter?" Mom's expression hardened. "Don't be so dramatic. Grace and Jack are in a tough spot, and they need our help." "Our help?" I scoffed. "More like my help. I'm the one who's been paying half the bills around here while Grace gallivants around, mooching off everyone." "Watch your mouth," Mom snapped. "Grace is going through a difficult time. The least you could do is show some compassion." I let out a bitter laugh. "Compassion? That's rich, coming from you. When was the last time you showed me any?" Mom's eyes narrowed. "You ungrateful brat. After everything I've done for you—" "Everything you've done for me?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You mean constantly putting me down, criticizing me, and favoring Grace no matter what she does?" "That's enough," Mom shouted, her face flushed with anger. "I won't have you speaking to me like that in my own house." "Your house?" I shot back. "I've been the one holding this place together with my paychecks while you cater to Grace's every whim." Mom's expression twisted into a sneer. "If you can't show your sister some basic kindness, then maybe it's time you found your own place." I stared at her, feeling like all the air had been knocked out of my lungs. "You're kicking me out?" "If that's what it takes for you to learn some respect," Mom said coldly. In that moment, something inside me snapped. "Fine," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "I'll leave. But don't come crawling back to me when Grace and her loser husband bleed you dry." Mom's eyes widened, but before she could respond, I slammed the door in her face. Hot tears streamed down my cheeks as I sank to the floor, my world crumbling around me. After the explosive fight with Mom, I knew there was no going back. I had to move out, start fresh, and leave the toxicity of my family behind. As much as it hurt, I couldn't keep subjecting myself to their cruelty and favoritism. I called my best friend Sarah, trying to hold back tears. "Hey, I need a huge favor. Can I crash at your place for a little while?" Sarah's concerned voice came through the line. "Of course, Beth. What's going on?" "It's a long story," I said with a shaky exhale. "I'll explain everything when I get there." "Is it okay if I come over tonight?" "Absolutely," Sarah replied without hesitation. "My door is always open for you." With Sarah's support, I started packing up my belongings. It was a somber task, sorting through the remnants of my life in this house, the home I had worked so hard to maintain, only to be cast aside like garbage. As I folded my clothes and packed away my personal items, memories flooded my mind. The countless times I had sacrificed to keep the household running smoothly, the birthdays and holidays where my efforts went unnoticed while Grace basked in Mom's adoration. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them away fiercely. I couldn't afford to break down now. I had to stay strong and forge a new path for myself, away from the toxic dynamic that had suffocated me for so long. A knock on the door startled me. "Beth? It's Jack." I tensed up, not wanting to deal with Grace's husband and his inevitable manipulation tactics. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice sharp. "Can we talk?" Jack asked, his tone deceptively gentle. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." I scoffed and flung open the door, glaring at him. "The only misunderstanding is you two thinking you can just waltz in and take over my life." Jack held up his hands in a placating gesture. "I get that this is a tough situation, but we really need your help right now. Grace and I are going through some rough times." "Rough times that you brought on yourselves," I shot back, my anger flaring. "Don't try to guilt me into enabling your irresponsible behavior." Jack's expression hardened. "Watch your tone, Beth. We're family, and families should support each other." I let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, tell that to Mom and Grace. They've made it pretty clear where I rank in this family." Before Jack could respond, I brushed past him, dragging my packed suitcase behind me. "I'm done with all of you. Don't bother trying to reel me back in." As I stepped out into the cool evening air, a weight lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope for a better future, one where I wouldn't be constantly belittled and taken for granted. Sarah greeted me with a warm hug as I arrived at her apartment, my suitcase in tow. "I'm so sorry you're going through this, Beth," she said, her eyes filled with concern. I gave her a tight smile, trying to hold back the fresh wave of tears threatening to spill over. "Thanks for letting me stay. I just couldn't be around them anymore." Sarah ushered me inside, and I immediately felt a sense of calm wash over me. Her cozy living room was a stark contrast to the tense, suffocating atmosphere of my family home. "Make yourself at home," Sarah said, gesturing to the plush couch. "Can I get you something to drink? Maybe a glass of wine?" I shook my head, sinking into the soft cushions. "Just some water would be great, thanks." As Sarah disappeared into the kitchen, I took a deep breath, allowing the weight of the past few hours to settle in. I was officially on my own, cut off from the toxic dynamic that had consumed me for so long. Sarah returned with a glass of water and a reassuring smile. "Whenever you're ready, I'm here to listen." I nodded, taking a sip of the cool liquid before launching into the whole sordid tale: Mom's blatant favoritism, Grace's entitled attitude, and the explosive fight that led to my eviction. "I can't believe they treated you like that," Sarah said, her brow furrowed with anger. "You've done nothing but support that family, and they just tossed you aside." "I know," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "But as much as it hurts, I can't keep subjecting myself to that kind of abuse." Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing, Beth. It's time you started living for yourself." Her words resonated deep within me, igniting a spark of determination. For too long, I had sacrificed my own happiness and well-being for a family that didn't appreciate me. But no more. Over the next few days, I settled into Sarah's spare bedroom, slowly unpacking my belongings and rediscovering pieces of myself that had been buried beneath the weight of my family's expectations. I started exploring new hobbies, like joining a local book club and taking a beginner's pottery class. It felt exhilarating to pursue activities purely for my own enjoyment, without the constant fear of judgment or criticism. At work, I threw myself into my projects with renewed vigor, impressing my boss with my dedication and innovative ideas. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that had nothing to do with pleasing my family. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of my past slowly lifted, replaced by a newfound sense of freedom and possibility. I was finally living for myself, and the future had never looked brighter. A few weeks after moving in with Sarah, my phone started ringing incessantly. Each time it was Mom or Grace, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails pleading for me to answer. I ignored them, not ready to reopen that toxic chapter of my life. One evening, as Sarah and I were catching up over takeout, my phone rang again. I rolled my eyes, ready to silence it, but Sarah gave me a pointed look. "You should probably answer it," she said. "Maybe they finally have something important to say." With a sigh, I answered the call. "What do you want, Mom?" "Beth, thank goodness." Mom's frantic voice came through the line. "We're in big trouble here." I felt a pang of satisfaction at the desperation in her tone. "Oh, really? What's the matter? Can't handle things without me around?" "It's not just that," Mom said, her voice strained. "Psst. We're behind on the mortgage payments, and the utility companies are threatening to shut everything off. A humorless laugh escaped my lips. Gee, I wonder how that happened. Maybe you shouldn't have kicked out the person who was helping cover the bills. Beth, please, Mom begged. We need your help. We're barely scraping by. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction at their predicament. After years of being dismissed and belittled, the tables had finally turned. You know, Mom, this is exactly what I warned you about, I said, my voice dripping with contempt. You chose Grace over me, and now you're dealing with the consequences. I made a mistake, okay? Mom cried. I'm sorry for how I treated you. Just please, help us out this one time. I could hear Grace's muffled sobs in the background, and a part of me felt a twinge of sympathy. But the hurt ran too deep. Sorry, Mom, I said, my voice steely. You told me to leave, and that's exactly what I did. Now it's your turn to figure things out on your own. With that, I ended the call, ignoring the subsequent barrage of texts and voicemails. Sarah looked at me with a mix of concern and understanding. Are you okay? She asked gently. I nodded, taking a deep breath. Yeah, I'm fine. It's just satisfying to see them reaping what they sowed for once. Sarah gave me a supportive smile. You have every right to stand your ground, Beth. They made their bed, now they have to lie in it. As the weeks passed, the calls from Mom and Grace became increasingly frantic. Apparently, Jack had been hiding significant debts that led to his job loss, compounding their financial woes. Part of me felt guilty for not helping, but a stronger part knew that enabling their dysfunction would only prolong the cycle of toxicity. Sometimes, the only way to break free was to let the consequences play out, no matter how painful. I had finally severed the ties that had bound me for so long, and I wasn't about to let them reel me back in. This was their karma to face, not mine. Over the next few months, the situation at my former home spiraled further out of control. Sarah kept me updated on the neighborhood gossip. Utilities had been shut off, debt collectors were constantly harassing them, and the once pristine lawn was overgrown and unkempt. A part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction watching their downfall unfold. After years of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home, it was almost poetic justice to see them reap the consequences of their actions. One evening, Sarah came home from work with a concerned look on her face. I saw your mom at the grocery store today, she said hesitantly. She looked rough. I raised an eyebrow, unsure if I wanted to hear the details. Oh yeah? How so? Sarah sighed. Her clothes were disheveled, her hair was a mess. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. A flicker of guilt tugged at my conscience, but I quickly squashed it down. They had made their bed, and now they had to lie in it. Well, maybe now she'll finally understand what it's like to struggle, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Sarah gave me a sympathetic look. I know you're still hurting, Beth, but don't let their mistakes consume you too. I nodded, acknowledging her words, but deep down a part of me relished in their suffering. It was the ultimate revenge for years of neglect and mistreatment. A few days later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello, I said cautiously. Beth, it's Grace. Her voice was strained, barely above a whisper. I felt a surge of bitterness rise within me. What do you want, Grace? I need your help, she choked out, and I could hear the tears in her voice. Everything is falling apart, and I don't know what to do. I couldn't help but scoff. Funny, that's exactly how I felt when you and Mom kicked me out like garbage. I know, Grace sobbed. I was so wrong, Beth. Please, you have to help us. We're desperate. A twisted part of me reveled in her anguish, savoring the taste of long-awaited retribution. Why should I help you, Grace? You and Mom made it clear that I wasn't part of the family anymore. Please, Beth, she begged. I'll do anything. I'm sorry for how we treated you. Just please, don't let us end up on the streets. I could hear the genuine desperation in her voice, and for a fleeting moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You know what, Grace? I said, my voice cold and unwavering. This is exactly what you deserve. Maybe now you'll finally learn what it's like to be the one left out in the cold. With that, I ended the call, relishing in the sweet taste of revenge. They had brought this upon themselves, and I wasn't about to be their savior. As the weeks passed, the situation at my former home continued to deteriorate. Sarah would occasionally fill me in on the latest gossip. Unpaid bills piling up, constant visits from debt collectors, and even whispers of Grace and Jack getting involved in some unsavory activities to make ends meet. A part of me felt a twisted satisfaction watching their lives unravel. After years of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home, it was almost poetic justice to see them reap the consequences of their actions. But another part of me couldn't help but feel a twinge of sorrow. As much as they had hurt me, they were still my family, and seeing them spiral so far downward tugged at my heartstrings. One evening, as Sarah and I were catching up over a glass of wine, she hesitantly broached the subject. "Beth, I know you're still hurting from everything that happened," she said gently. "But don't you think it's time to let go of some of that anger?" I sighed, swirling the rich red liquid in my glass. "I don't know, Sarah. They put me through hell for so long. Part of me feels like they deserve to suffer." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I get it. Believe me. But holding on to that bitterness is only going to poison you in the end." Her words struck a chord within me. As satisfying as it was to watch my family crumble, was I really any better if I continued to harbor such resentment? The next day, as I was prepping for an important presentation at work, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from Mom. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Beth?" Mom's voice was barely above a whisper, thick with emotion. I don't even know where to start. I steeled myself, bracing for another round of excuses or manipulation tactics. "I'm so sorry, Beth," she continued, her words punctuated by soft sobs. "I was a terrible mother to you. You deserved so much better." I felt my resolve wavering as she poured her heart out, taking full responsibility for the pain she had caused me. "I know I can never make up for how I treated you," she said. "But please, let me try. I'll do anything to earn your forgiveness." In that moment, something shifted within me. As much as I had reveled in their suffering, I realized that holding on to that bitterness was only hurting me in the end. "Mom," I said, my voice softer than I had intended. "I can't pretend like everything is okay between us. You really hurt me." "I know," she replied, her voice thick with remorse. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me." I took a deep breath, letting go of the anger and resentment that had weighed me down for so long. "Okay, Mom, let's start over, one step at a time." It wasn't going to be an easy road, but in that moment I realized that true healing could only come from forgiveness, not just for them, but for myself as well. After the emotional conversation with Mom, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. It wasn't going to be easy to rebuild our relationship, but for the first time in years, I felt hopeful about the possibility of healing. Over the next few months, Mom made consistent efforts to make amends. She invited me over for weekly dinners, where she listened intently as I opened up about the pain and neglect I had endured. Though it was difficult, I could see the genuine remorse in her eyes. Grace and Jack, on the other hand, kept their distance. The last I had heard, they had downsized to a modest apartment and were slowly getting back on their feet. A part of me still harbored resentment towards them, but I knew that holding on to that bitterness would only hold me back. As for me, I continued to thrive in my newfound independence. At work, I took on a side project that allowed me to showcase my creativity and problem-solving skills. My boss was impressed with my dedication and innovative ideas, and whispers of a promotion started circulating the office. In my personal life, I embraced new hobbies and interests that had been neglected for far too long. I joined a local book club, where I could engage in lively discussions and explore new literary worlds. I even tried my hand at pottery, finding a sense of calm and mindfulness in the simple act of shaping clay. Sarah remained my constant support system, cheering me on every step of the way. "I'm so proud of you, Beth," she said one evening as we shared a bottle of wine on her balcony. "You've come such a long way." I smiled, basking in the warm glow of her friendship. "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied genuinely. "You were there for me when my own family wasn't." As the months passed, I found myself truly letting go of the past. The anger and resentment that had once consumed me slowly faded, replaced by a newfound sense of self-worth and confidence. One evening, as I was getting ready for a night out with some coworkers, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "I just wanted to let you know how proud I am of you, Beth. You've grown into such a strong, independent woman, and I'm honored to be a part of your life again." Tears stung my eyes as I read her words, but for the first time, they weren't tears of pain or bitterness. They were tears of gratitude and healing. I had finally broken free from the toxic cycle that had held me back for so long. No longer was I defined by the neglect and mistreatment of my past. Instead, I was forging my own path, surrounded by people who truly appreciated and supported me. As I stepped out into the warm evening air, I felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over me. The journey had been long and arduous, but in the end I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before.